When you want your spring break to feel like... and your kids' pool day to feel like... and your hotel bed to feel like... ooh, and room service to feel like... because at Hilton, hospitality feels like...
Your cabana's ready. Would you like fresh towels?
It matters where you stay. Book now at Hilton.com. Hilton, for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso. Introducing Virtuo Up, the latest in a long line of innovation from Nespresso. It's innovation you can touch, sense, and taste in every single cup. With a 3-second start, easy open lever, and dedicated brew over ice button, it's even easier to enjoy your coffee your way. Sip for yourself. Shop Virtuo Up exclusively at Nespresso.com.
Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
How would you like to feel invincible in particular situations where you're presenting in public? And that doesn't matter if it's a best man speech or a company presentation or a dinner party or an informal gathering where you're just sharing a particular message or all eyes are on you. But if you felt invincible in that situation, would it be useful? My name's Adam, and I've helped a particular client to feel invincible in the kind of situation that was getting them on edge and anxious and nervous. Now, this hypnosis session that you're about to listen to takes them back to a time where they felt really, really good, but it had nothing to do with public speaking. It had to do with snowboarding. And they felt on one particular day, they were in that flow state. They felt they could do anything, and they felt, to use their words, invincible. So what this session does is it takes that feeling of invincibility and maps it across to a public speaking environment. Now, to get the best out of this session, I'm going to prime you right now. I want you to think, even before the hypnosis starts, when in your life have you felt invincible? And if you can't think of that, when in your life have you been in a flow state where whatever came up, you felt that you could just deal with it? Think of that. And then when you hear the beginning of this hypnosis session talking about snowboarding, I want you to think about that time that you felt either invincible or in a flow state. And then that way you're going to get more out of this session. Now, I also want you to think of the kind of environments where you feel anxious. Maybe it's very senior, high status people observing you. Maybe it's the size of the audience. Maybe it's the fact that you feel under-prepared or ambushed. Whatever it is, think of that. So I want you to think of the resource state and the kind of context that currently is making you feel anxious. And just by thinking of those two thoughts or memories, you're going to get so much more value from this session. It was created for an individual, obviously with the snowboarding reference. So not all of the suggestions are going to be right for you. But if you like the idea of working with me and you're not quite sure, have a look in the description and you're going to see a suitability test. It takes under 2 minutes to do. It just asks you a series of questions, you answer them, and then it's going to give you the percentage probability that you would actually benefit from hypnosis. So if you've been curious about that, check that out, and it will also let you know what to do after that if you are interested in using hypnosis beyond just listening to a podcast. For now, though, I want you to find a quiet, comfortable place, the kind of place where you're not going to be distracted or disturbed. Relax and enjoy this session. Take a deep breath in And as you breathe in that long, slow, relaxing breath. And as you exhale, feel a feeling of release. Releasing any tension, any stress, any worries. Slowly and incrementally. And I want you to think of a color that represents a fusion of relaxation and confidence. And maybe it's gold, or yellow, or something else that might be bright or vibrant. And just imagine as you breathe in, you're breathing in that color that represents resourceful confidence. Imagine it going in through your nose into your lungs. And maybe you can imagine your heart taking that resourceful confidence in the same way it does with oxygen and distributing it to every cell in your body. And instead of that carbon dioxide leaving your body in the outward breath, I want you to imagine anything unresourceful. Any fears, any doubts, any concerns, any insecurities. Just imagine it leaving your body like a grey, shadowy sensation, just leaving your body as you exhale. Breathing in the resourceful confidence and exhaling any limitations, any echoes of old experiences, narrative stories. Just feel it leave your body in your outward breath. The deeper you breathe, the more relaxed you feel. And the more relaxed you feel, the deeper you breathe. Each breath taking you deeper and deeper relaxed. And as your body relaxes, your imagination awakens. And I want you to imagine seeing an old phone that maybe you had 20 years ago. Or maybe an old laptop, an old computer. And just imagine finding a location filled with old photos and pictures of a particular snowboarding trip. And these photos don't have to exist, it's just imagine if they did. And I want you to imagine seeing photos of you at a time when you felt invincible. Some people call it a flow state. That period in time where it just feels like you're harnessing skills and capabilities beyond what should be happening. And I want you to imagine as you see these photos, whenever you look at one for more than 2 seconds, it turns into a movie of that moment. I want you to see yourself perfectly balanced, gracefully or effortlessly gliding down slopes. See the creativity, the confidence, the self-belief, And maybe you're seeing yourself do jumps or maneuvers that you'd never done before. And if you can get a sense that this version of you has got absolute belief in their capabilities, let me know by nodding your head. And I want you to imagine what it would feel like to go into the screen, into the picture, into the memory. Not in your own body yet, but as an observer. See that version of you from the past in a highly resourceful state. And perhaps you come to a natural conclusion that when you're in a highly resourceful state, you don't need to overthink. You don't need to over-prepare. That version of you, when you're at your most resourceful, has self-belief, self-trust, and the ability to respond quickly to what's actually happening. And as you come to that conclusion that if you would have over-prepared and overthought and had your thoughts in your own head in that moment, you would have been worse, not better. Then imagine floating into your body and feeling what it would feel like to see the lineup of the jumps, to get a sense of your balance on the board, perhaps even the cool crispness in the air, the tightness around your ankles and calves, the feeling of exhilaration, acceleration, perhaps even the feeling of weightlessness while you're mid-jump. And I want you to get a sense. This is a blueprint of accessing this flow state in any other area of your life. Trusting and then focusing not on yourself but on the terrain. That balance between capability and situations. And maybe you feel something there in the chest. Something that feels that if in that situation someone challenged you, questioned your abilities, there would be something appealing about that. If someone didn't know how well you could snowboard, the fact that you were underestimated or just simply not known would mean that if you were challenged, you might smile because you know that your abilities exceed either the demand or the perception. I want you to imagine it's the end of a great day of snowboarding, of connecting, of laughing, of feeling all of that dopamine and connection. And I want you to imagine somewhere close by is a cabin. Not necessarily the cabin you were in, but just a cabin. I want you to imagine you're no longer on the board. You're no longer in the gear. And I want you to imagine you walk into that cabin, and maybe you can imagine the warmth of a log fire, feeling connected, comfortable. And I want you to imagine that in this cabin is your own private cinema. And here, in In this cinema, rather than seeing movies, we see memories. And I want you to imagine a moment from the past when you were the most confident, the most comfortable that you can recall being when presenting. Maybe it was a small meeting or a large presentation to 100 people or more. But I want you to see on that screen what you look like when you are grounded, confident, comfortable, and maybe even occasionally defiant. When you get a sense of what you look like when you are in a highly resourceful state when speaking, let me know by nodding your head. And let's just test it out. Imagine floating into the screen and feeling how it would feel to be that way, to connect with that feeling of feeling grounded. Feel the weight evenly distributed. Feel your chest expand, shoulders back, chin up. Eye contact, slow, steady, deliberate. Imagine looking at your hands and just seeing how rock solid stable they are. Imagine putting a hand on your belly and your chest and just assessing how you breathe when you're calm, confident, comfortable. Awaken all these parts within you. Return to the cabin and then see a memory of a time when you were anxious presenting. See it as it was, maybe looking agitated, nervous. But then imagine rewinding that and replacing that version of you with a version of you that is calm, confident, comfortable, grounded, perhaps even defiant. Still seeing it on the screen, but now imagine yourself reliving that moment the way you would have wanted it to have been if you were at your most resourceful. And if you can see how the memory changes when the resourceful version of you is in control, let me know by nodding your head. And you can play around with different scenarios. The confident version of you, testing out different postures, facial expressions, until you find the one that is just right. And when you find it, and it feels like if you were in that state, it would have gone that way, let me know by nodding your head. That's it. Rewind it and step into the screen and that version of you, feeling that resourceful state. But rather than seconds before you talk, I want you to imagine being in the resourceful state, going back to when you very first got notified of it. Maybe it was an email, a meeting invite, something that comes up in the calendar, and just imagine seeing the meeting invite, smiling, knowing you've got this. And every time you see it in the calendar, you smile. I've got this. And then it's minutes before it starts. And your focus isn't on you. Perhaps it's on whoever's talking before you. And you feel, I've got this. And then you're invited to speak. And then imagine you smile right before. Feel your eyes Feel completely relaxed from your eyebrows, eyelids, all around your eyes. Feel a sense of slow, steady breathing. Grounded. Every footstep, or even when you stand, you just feel rock solid. And then imagine saying whatever you wanted to say and feeling how calm and confident you feel. And if it feels that if you were in that state, instead of the old memory, then you feel that you can handle it, just let me know by nodding your head. And then I want you to imagine we make it more challenging than it actually was. I want you to imagine the facial expressions of whoever you're talking to being bored, disinterested, disengaged, judgmental. And I want you to feel somewhere in your body that you like the challenge. It makes you really feel either more engaged or that you have nothing to lose. Whatever makes you feel more resourceful. Imagine someone asking a question you don't know the answer, and yet it does not faze you. Connect with that feeling of you can thank them for the question. If it's a really tricky question, congratulate them on the knowledge or the understanding they have because it's such a good question. And maybe use humor or authenticity, honesty. Maybe you say something like, well, I don't know the specifics there, but here's what I do know. Maybe turn it into a joke. I want you to feel how comfortable you feel, even if someone catches you off guard with something you don't fully know. Imagine someone else asks a question, but not from a desire to understand. Imagine someone asks a question to try and catch you out, to see you trip up. And I want you to scan your body for where you feel that defiance, the playfulness, the fun. But the more tricky they make it, the more fun it feels. And maybe you hold a mirror back to them. Let them know that you know what they're doing. Or maybe you just deal with it in a very humble, polite way. Or maybe you answer a question with a question. Play the Uno reverse card. Allow your unconscious to give you different scenarios so that you can feel that even if this happened, your resources exceed the demands. No different than if you're snowboarding and something you didn't see in front of you, you then become aware of. A branch, a rock. And you trust your ability to maneuver well whatever comes up when you notice it. If you feel resourceful, confident, grounded, and calm, then your brain will give you a new belief. And that belief is that the more you encounter challenging situations when presenting, the more competent you become, the more confident you feel. And the more confident you feel, the more relaxed and the more fun you can have. And I want you to imagine leaving the screen and still being in that cabin. But instead of seeing the past, I want you to imagine seeing something in the future that hasn't happened yet. And I want you to imagine seeing that version of you get a meeting invite and see that version of you smile the very moment it arrives. You're looking forward to it, genuinely. That whenever that version of you sees it in the calendar, there's a feeling of, I want this. I don't have to do this. I get to do this. It's fun for you. And then imagine the day arrives. See that version of you minutes before it happens, looking calm, composed, and relaxed, with the same facial expression that you had back on that day snowboarding, knowing that you were invincible. Just allow neural pathways from the past and the future to update. New meanings, new connotations, certain emotional pathways close and others open. And don't be surprised if in the next few days there is an invitation to present, to speak, to share ideas. And don't be surprised if your very first reaction is to smile. And maybe there's a voice, maybe that same voice from 20 years ago, knowing that you could snowboard in any terrain. What if it's that voice that just tells you in that moment, you've got this? And as you hold that thought, it's time to return. Return from that moment all the way to the present, but taking these new beliefs, ideas, and connotations with you. So take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, connect and calibrate into the here and the now. As I now count from 1 to 10 to awaken you, starting to count. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of The Hypnotist. If you've enjoyed this episode or got some value from it, please give it a 5-star rating and review. And maybe you know someone that would also benefit from this particular episode, in which case share the episode with them so they can also get the benefit too. And if you would like to listen to this episode where it's just the hypnosis, so no intro, no outro, no explanation, just the hypnosis and completely ad-free, there will be a link in the description where you can subscribe at a very low cost and only get access to the hypnosis. So if that's of interest, please check that out. Thank you again for being a regular listener of The Hypnotist, and I'll see you again soon for more.